In 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas divided the world into two sections. The East, which included Asia and Africa, was given to Portugal, while the New World was given to Spain. The Pope granted much of the world to Spain and Portugal because they were among the few countries that were still entirely loyal to Catholicism following the Protestant Reformation. And in the exchange for the riches and power that came with new territory, Spain and Portugal agreed to spread the Catholic faith to the peoples inhabiting these lands. In addition to the dividing of the globe, the late 15th century also marked the beginning of an international trade from Europe as an important economic resource. Within the final decade of the century, Portugal increased its shipping power by more than 600%, allowing them to control shipping for the next 80 years. The economic opportunities in the New World are also becoming more important incentive for international trade. Columbus, in the letter to the King and Queen of Spain, explains how the government can make oodles of gold if they finance his trip to the New World, as they would make a percentage of all wealth discovered. These new opportunities for international trade are a chief source of political turmoil within Europe. In 1519, a Portuguese explorer named Ferdinand Magellan convinced King Charles I of Spain that the Spice Islands of the Philippines could belong to Spain while following the rules of the Treaty of Tordesillas. Although Magellan's logic and strategy were not accurate or practical, Spain financed his voyage because of how greedy nations were for power during this new age of exploration. Trade was a rising factor in securing power, so although Spain and Portugal, who were the largest traders during this time, who were restricted by treaty limitations to the granted parts of the world, they would each jump at the chance to try and work around the treaty and gain an upper hand over one another in order to become the wealthiest and most influential nation, not only in Europe, but in the entire known world. Even Christopher Columbus's initial voyage in 1492 wasn't well planned, and to many people, his goal seemed impossible of finding India by sailing west so that Spain could have claim to its riches. Even though Columbus was lucky and inadvertently discovered new continents, the investment risk of his voyage and many others show how desperate European nations were in expanding to gain a strategic foothold over one another. At first, Portuguese and the Spanish, with their vast colonial power, were the only ones who exploited the tool of trade. Soon, as trade became more prevalent to other countries, rivalries ensued. For instance, the Anglo-Dutch rivalry was a result of one of the major wars for power over the seas and trade routes. Trade had now become the main motivating factor for imperial empires. As the desire to expand trade routes, so did the need for colonization of the countries to increase their trading value. With the conflicts resulted over colonization and traders between countries trying to become the next empire, this is especially shown in the Anglican and Dutch wars. England's strong naval force was built up during the reign of Elizabeth I in piracy raids on the Spanish Empire in attempts to claim ships, goods, and cargo. The Dutch, on the other hand, built their naval army and trade routes by taking Spanish ports in the West Indies and taking the spice cargo, and they became wealthy and powerful from this. Relations between both Spain and England quickly improved after these raids, and secret agreements were made between the two powerhouses in an attempt to limit and destroy the Dutch naval power. These desires to become more wealthy, powerful, and to control the trade routes and the seas were what drove these two powerhouses to war. This is especially prevalent all over Europe during this time of age of exploration, as each country was trying to gain a bigger foothold to become more powerful, influential, and the best country in the world.